The data from continuous observations do not match the established and proven mathematical models of modern physics at all. An inexplicable gravitational anomaly of truly colossal proportions lurks at the cold edge of the star system. It silently and menacingly controls the motion of entire groups of distant celestial bodies, distorting their trajectories. Modern science simply cannot explain this phenomenon using existing academic theories. Something enormous lurks in the darkness of space, categorically refusing to reveal its true form. Scientists have always considered the solar system to be a thoroughly studied, predictable, and absolutely safe place. Calculations showed a perfect gravitational balance of forces between the 8 known planets and the central star. Researchers were completely certain that beyond Neptune's cold orbit, there was nothing significant or capable of surprising them. Spacecraft were supposed to fly through this empty zone without the slightest unplanned gravitational disturbance. However, ultra-sensitive instruments constantly detect strange deviations in the motion of trans-Neptunian objects, leaving astrophysicists in shock. Humanity's confidence in its own planetary safety turned out to be nothing more than a naive and dangerous illusion. The space beyond Neptune is incredibly vast and forever plunged into eternal icy darkness. In this silent desert, thousands of small dwarf planets, comets, and rocky asteroids orbit. According to all known rules of astrophysics, their orbits should be distributed in a random and chaotic manner. The Sun's gravity at such a gigantic distance is too weak to create and maintain a strict mathematical order. Yet, the discovered objects have aligned themselves in an unnatural line, as if unquestioningly obeying some powerful, invisible will. Such an alignment of orbits cannot be physically explained by a simple statistical coincidence or an error in telescopic observation. The mathematical probability of such an ordered structure arising by chance is a tiny fraction of 1%. This directly implies the presence of a massive gravitational anchor that forcibly holds these ice flows together. An unknown object methodically imposes its strict rules at the very edge of explored space. And this strange object remains completely invisible to all existing ground-based and orbital observatories. For decades, astronomers have been pointing the world's most powerful telescopes at the presumed location in this empty space. Engineers are creating increasingly sensitive digital sensors to capture the faint reflected light. Researchers sift through terabytes of images in search of a faint, wandering dot against the backdrop of stationary stars. None of these desperate, high-tech attempts has yielded even the slightest practical success. The mysterious source of gravity continues to skillfully hide from the most powerful instruments ever created by humanity. Scientists are literally trying to find a black cat in a huge dark room without a single light source. The situation becomes increasingly tense and frightening with every new asteroid discovered in that region. Each new icy chunk at the edge of the system merely provides mathematical confirmation of the terrifying theory of an invisible influence. The anomaly does not fade over time, but takes on increasingly harsh and mathematically precise contours. Researchers can no longer casually dismiss these facts as errors in outdated equipment or lens distortions. The observed phenomenon is a harsh physical reality of the cosmic environment closest to Earth. This hidden mass exceeds the weight of the Earth by 5 or even 10 times. Such a colossal celestial body should be easily visible even through advanced amateur telescopes. It should reflect sunlight and emit its own faint infrared thermal radiation. Yet the most sensitive sensors repeatedly detect only the chilling emptiness of deep, lifeless space. The surrounding reality is openly mocking the fundamental laws of classical optics and radiophysics. If physical models fail fundamentally right near Earth's orbit, this signals a global scientific crisis. The academic community is forced to begin considering the most radical and frankly terrifying hypotheses about what is happening. The standard theory of the classical ninth planet is gradually losing its former logical appeal. Scientists are beginning to seriously suspect that something far more exotic and ancient lurks in the darkness. Perhaps there is an object there whose very existence instills a primal terror in the minds of theoretical physicists. The human picture of the world has suffered a massive conceptual crack that can no longer be ignored. This discovery forever erases centuries of peaceful and romantic study of the night sky. Humanity has suddenly realized that it has absolutely no understanding of the structure of its own planetary home. Beyond the saving light lies a force capable of altering the orbits of entire unknown worlds. And the most terrifying thing is that science has absolutely no idea of its true physical nature. Cosmic reality turned out to be completely different from how school textbooks confidently describe it. According to everything known to modern science, the solar system should be extremely stable and predictable. Astronomers have long compiled incredibly precise maps of the motion of all major known celestial bodies. Newton's laws of gravity and Einstein's equations brilliantly describe this vast and precise clockwork mechanism. Each planet has been moving unquestioningly along its strictly designated elliptical orbit for billions of years. Nothing should suddenly disrupt this exquisitely calibrated gravitational balance in this well-studied region of space. The inner part of the system is densely filled with light, life-sustaining warmth, and rocky worlds like our familiar Earth. Life was able to safely emerge here thanks to the ideal distance from our hot star. A little further out lie giant gas giants, such as massive Jupiter and Saturn. Their colossal gravity acts as a reliable shield against destructive comets flying in from outside. These giants absorb most of the dangerous cosmic impacts, protecting the inner planets. Beyond cold, Neptune lies the Kuiper Belt, consisting of ancient icy debris. For a long time, this picture seemed complete, entirely logical, and safe for the development of life. Researchers reasonably assumed that beyond the Kuiper Belt lay an empty and monotonous interstellar environment. The mass of objects there was supposed to gradually and predictably taper off as they moved farther from the star. Scientists thought that there simply wasn't enough raw material left at the outer edges to form large bodies. The icy fragments were expected to have chaotic trajectories, scattered randomly in all directions. The gravitational influence of the giant planets at such vast distances becomes critically weak and negligible. The Sun's gravitational pull there is barely capable of keeping small icy objects from drifting into deep space. Space was simply supposed to gradually transition into a cold, structureless void. For many years, ground-based telescopes confirmed this cozy and crystal-clear model of physical reality. Astronomers regularly discovered new dwarf planets that fit perfectly into the existing equations of mechanics. Pluto and its numerous icy neighbors behaved exactly as theorists had confidently predicted. The motion of every new cosmic rock discovered only reinforced the universal belief in the infallibility of Earth-based science. Powerful computer simulations painted a calm and monotonous picture of the slow evolution of the outer reaches of the solar system. The scientific community believed that cosmology had once and for all settled the question of the composition of the immediate cosmos. Scientists were already preparing to direct all their research efforts toward studying distant alien stars. However, this flawless mathematical idyll turned out to be nothing more than a temporary illusion, born of a lack of accurate data. With the advancement of technology, humanity gained the ability to peer into the darkest and coldest corners of our own outer reaches. Upon a deeper and more detailed scan of the night sky, researchers stumbled upon a completely inexplicable systemic failure. Far beyond the reach of Neptune's gravity, objects suddenly began to behave completely erratically. Their cold orbits were elongated in one specific direction with frightening geometric precision. Such perfect order directly contradicts the very nature of spontaneous and chaotic cosmic formation. This alarming phenomenon was first observed during a highly precise study of a dwarf planet named Sedna. Its incredible orbit extends so far into the icy void that a single revolution takes millennia. Sedna spends most of its life in unimaginable cold and pitch-black darkness far from the sun. By all the rules of classical physics, it should never have ended up on such a strange trajectory. The gravity of all known gas giants simply could not have flung it to that distant point in space. For Sedna to move exactly like this, it must have been pulled by something incredibly massive and hidden in the darkness. At first, many scientists tried to attribute this to the brief influence of a long-vanished passing star. There are indeed moments in space when neighboring star systems fly relatively close to ours. Researchers hypothesized that millions of years ago, some wandering foreign celestial body had grazed the star system. It could have disrupted the orbits of the icy dwarfs with its mass and flown off into the impenetrable depths of the galaxy. This logical and reassuring explanation temporarily satisfied the scientific community and restored faith in the old calculations. But new astronomical discoveries very quickly and ruthlessly destroyed this convenient scientific hypothesis. A single flyby by a foreign star would have left completely different, more random gravitational traces at the outer edges. After discovering Sedna's oddities, astronomers began finding dozens of similar anomalous icy worlds, and all of them exhibited the same unsettling peculiarity in their extremely slow motion. All these trans-Neptunian objects had the same extremely elongated orbits pointing strictly in one direction. They moved in perfect synchrony, like the hands of giant compasses pointing toward a powerful invisible magnet. The probability of such parameters coinciding by chance in nature is a negligible fraction of a percent. A star that happened to pass by millions of years ago could not possibly have left such a stable and mathematically precise trail. Maintaining such a precise orbital configuration requires a constant and ongoing gravitational influence. This meant only one thing: the invisible sculptor was still there, just beyond the limits of visibility. The situation was rapidly moving beyond the scope of a routine academic debate or a minor statistical error. Scientists realized they were dealing with the most monumental astronomical discovery of modern times, right under their noses. Mathematicians fed the new, refined orbital data into the world's most powerful supercomputers for a thorough re-examination. The analytical machines ran for days on end, calculating millions of possible scenarios for the evolution of our solar system. The analytical machines produced a definitive answer that was deeply unsettling to human understanding. The existence of such an elongated structure without a supporting massive body is absolutely ruled out by the laws of physics. The simulations clearly showed that a group of icy dwarfs would disintegrate within a few million years under the normal influence of the sun's gravity. Without a strong external gravitational pull, they should have long since scattered throughout the boundless cloud of icy debris. Consequently, a mysterious and supermassive object is actively influencing the surrounding cosmic environment right now. Its gravity serves as a powerful cosmic anchor, preventing these small planets from scattering chaotically. It is invisibly present in the deep darkness, constantly tugging at the gravitational threads of entire icy worlds. This hidden giant dictates its harsh conditions to an entire vast region of our nearest cosmos. The planetary system turned out not to be a well-ordered and complete mechanism, but a complex puzzle with a huge missing piece. And this crucial piece stubbornly and eerily refuses to appear in the lenses of the best telescopes on Earth. Astronomers look precisely at the calculated coordinates, but see only the cold light of distant background stars. Our former confidence in a complete understanding of the world around us has suffered a deep and irreparable crack. Humanity found itself face to face with a grand mystery, hidden at the very edge of our own system. Decades of persistent observations and calculations have not yet yielded the desired result or absolute clarity. The researchers' expectations have been completely shattered by the harsh, cold, and utterly incomprehensible reality of what is happening. And here the situation becomes significantly worse and more paradoxical for the entire field of astrophysics. Experts have carefully calculated the precise parameters of this invisible cosmic conductor based on orbital deviations. They studied the mathematical motion of each icy dwarf in detail to calculate the approximate weight of their invisible master. Its mass must certainly exceed that of our planet by about 5 or even 10 times. Planetary scientists classify such a giant object as a super-Earth or a small cold ice giant. Such massive worlds are very common around other stars, but they have never been found in our solar system before. It must be in an incredibly elongated orbit, stretching astonishingly far into the darkness. A full orbit of this unwieldy giant around the Sun could take anywhere from 10 to 20,000 Earth years. The fundamental problem is that a planet of such gigantic size is physically impossible to hide. The surface of such a celestial body, likely covered in ancient ice, must act as a huge, dim mirror. It simply has to reflect enough sunlight to be reliably detected by modern instruments. Even at a distance of hundreds of billions of kilometers, highly sensitive sensors should have picked up this reflected light. The Hubble telescope or the Keck Mountain Observatory easily and regularly detect much smaller celestial objects. Earth-based instruments are capable of detecting faint, nascent galaxies at the very edge of the observable universe. But the sector where the gravitational anomaly is supposed to be located remains eerily black and completely empty. There is absolutely nothing there that could betray the presence of a massive icy giant in the darkness. Astronomers began systematically and obsessively combing the night sky, literally millimeter by millimeter. Researchers divided the suspicious zone into tiny sectors and photographed them night after night for many years. Every photograph obtained was carefully examined for the presence of moving, glowing points. Powerful computer algorithms searched for even the most microscopic pixel shifts against the backdrop of distant, stationary stars. The world's most advanced methods of digital processing of space photographs were employed. Scientists combined terabytes of data from dozens of different observatories across the globe. They created a massive, unified database of images to rule out any unfortunate errors or accidental technical oversights. But the hypothetical ninth planet left not a single optical trace on the ultra-precise sensors. This absolute elusiveness began to cause real panic among experienced experts in celestial mechanics. The usual methods of visually searching for planets proved completely useless in this unprecedented scientific situation. Scientists had to radically change the very methodology of this unprecedented and desperate cosmic search. If a massive object does not reflect sunlight, perhaps it emits its own ancient thermal radiation. A planet of such immense mass must retain residual internal heat from the process of its initial violent formation. The immense pressure deep within the giant must generate at least a minimal amount of infrared radiation. Infrared orbital telescopes began methodically scanning the icy void in search of a faint thermal spot. The WISE spacecraft scanned the entire observable sky twice, but found absolutely no thermal signatures of the required size. It easily detected millions of distant hot galaxies and hundreds of faint, cooling brown dwarfs. But in that very specific zone where the super-Earth was supposed to be hiding, absolute zero reigned. This ominous void on the monitors bears no resemblance to a simple lack of sensitivity in Earth-based equipment. The space sensors worked flawlessly and reliably detected objects of much smaller size and mass. It looks unnaturally perfect, as if someone had deliberately cut a giant object out of the very fabric of space. A gravitational anomaly exists, and this fact is firmly established by numerous independent observations of asteroids. However, the source of this monstrous force completely and unceremoniously ignores the laws of electromagnetic radiation. It exerts an incredibly strong influence on matter, yet categorically refuses to interact with light. Researchers have encountered a phenomenon that simply should not exist in a normal natural environment. We are accustomed to the fact that all heavy objects, without exception, inevitably leave a visible optical or faint thermal trail. Instruments detect the object's distinct shadow, and mathematics proves its colossal gravitational mass. But when astronomers activate every available sensor to observe it, there is nothing there. It's like watching an invisible ghost leaving massive craters in fresh snow. The situation goes beyond the scope of classical planetary science and is rapidly approaching the realm of the quantum unknown. At the start of this massive search, scientists thought they were simply looking in the wrong direction. The possible orbit of the supposed body is enormous, and the object could well be located at any mathematical point within it. There was a hypothesis that it was very effectively hiding against the backdrop of the Milky Way's dense star clusters. The light of billions of bright background stars could easily have obscured the faint reflection of a distant icy super-Earth. But subsequent thorough spectral analysis completely and unequivocally ruled out even this slim possibility. The instruments are capable of flawlessly filtering out starlight, but there was absolutely nothing behind it. With each new long cycle of scanning the sky, the terrifying uncertainty only grows and weighs heavily on the psyche. Leading scientists are beginning to reasonably doubt the most basic principles of the solar system structure. If there really is no massive physical planet there, then Newton's laws of gravity must not apply correctly at the outer reaches. Yet the orbits of all the other planets strictly and flawlessly obey these laws without the slightest, even microscopic, deviation. This means the error lies not at all in the old equations, but in the most eerie nature of the mysterious object being sought. A frightening realization is growing in academic circles that existing models of reality are critically flawed. Researchers are desperately trying to describe the unknown phenomenon using familiar, yet clearly outdated terms. The scientific community persistently searches for a planet simply because humanity has historically been accustomed to searching for planets. The minds of researchers reject the very idea of the existence of objects of a completely different, unimaginable class. A mysterious and powerful force on the edge of the solar system continues to play hide-and-seek with the planet's greatest minds. Scientists are forced to bitterly admit their complete failure in attempts to find the ninth planet using classical methods. This stalemate is forcing the scientific world to turn to alternative, far more terrifying theoretical explanations. And these new hypotheses are capable of easily robbing any sane researcher of the universe of their peace of mind. If it is definitely not a planet, then what is it that so strongly warps the orbits of distant asteroids? Scientists began actively searching for explanations in the darkest and most unexplored corners of theoretical physics. When classical astronomy reached a conceptual dead end, experts in quantum cosmology came to the rescue. Researchers turned their close attention to objects that form under the most extreme conditions. Science has come very close to that terrifying boundary beyond which familiar matter simply ceases to exist. The laws of the world we understand give way there to eerie anomalies of space and time. Theoretical physicists Jakub Schultz and James Anwin have put forward an incredibly bold and shocking hypothesis. They have proposed that the scientific community completely abandon the outdated idea of the existence of a massive icy planet. Their highly complex calculations have shown that the gravitational anomalies of trans-Neptunian objects are perfectly described by a body of a different nature. According to their firm mathematical conviction, a primordial black hole lies hidden at the edge of the solar system. This theory came as a bolt from the blue for the entire conservative academic community. It instantly overturned all established notions about the composition and safety of near space. At first, many astronomers refused to even seriously discuss such a radical and frightening idea. The very notion of a black hole so close to our home planet seemed like a wild fantasy. However, rigorous mathematical formulas stubbornly proved this bold and unconventional hypothesis correct. The numbers lined up perfectly, explaining the strange behavior of the icy dwarfs far better than any hidden planet. Gradually, skepticism began to give way to anxious curiosity and a desire to delve much deeper into this mystery. The scientific community was forced to openly acknowledge that this scenario has every right to exist. To fully grasp the horror of this hypothesis, one must understand the specific nature of such an object. Ordinary stellar black holes form only after the death of massive stars in colossal explosions. In our local star system, there have never been such monstrously huge and deadly progenitor stars in history. Our Sun is too small to ever turn into an insatiable gravitational vortex, but the notorious primordial black holes appeared in a completely different way, under fundamentally different conditions and at a different time. They arose in the very first fractions of a second after the Big Bang from seething, super-dense matter. At that unimaginable moment, the universe was an incredibly hot and chaotic boiling plasma, devoid of stars and galaxies. Powerful quantum fluctuations created microscopic regions of space with monstrously high energy density. This superheated matter instantly collapsed in on itself, forming impenetrable gravitational traps forever. Such ancient clumps of absolute darkness can fly unhindered through the galaxy for billions of years on end. And one of these immortal clumps could very well have been permanently captured by the gravity of the early Sun. Now, this ancient artifact is forced to circle eternally on the icy outskirts of our stellar home. If Schultz and Unwin's calculations are correct, the mysterious object has a total mass of 5 Earths. Yet its physical size is simply mind-boggling in its insignificance. A primordial black hole of such immense mass would be no larger than a standard tennis ball or a small grapefruit. The entire gigantic mass of 5 Earth-sized planets is compressed into a perfect sphere with a diameter of about 10 centimeters. The gravity on its invisible surface is so colossal that it instantly tears any matter apart into its basic atoms. And this microscopic, yet unimaginably heavy monster orbits right at the edge of the known system. This microscopic point of absolute darkness is physically incapable of reflecting light according to the most basic laws of nature. Its monstrous, infinite gravity irrevocably absorbs any photons that happen to fall beyond the mathematical event horizon. This is precisely why all the most powerful optical telescopes detect only a perfect, untouched void in that region. Instruments cannot see an object the size of an apple at a distance of billions of kilometers of darkness. This brilliantly, yet very frighteningly, explains why the 9th planet has never been found. No terrestrial telescope is simply designed to search for such tiny, dark spots. For decades, the scientific community has desperately searched for a giant icy sphere, scanning the optical and infrared ranges of the spectrum. People expected to see a familiar, understandable cold world with rings, moons, or a methane atmosphere. Instead, the oldest and deadliest gravitational predator in the universe may be quietly lurking there. This idea deals a crushing blow to the calm and comfortable perception of the surrounding near space. A black hole in the solar system sounds to the average person like a cheap plot from a sci-fi horror movie. But rigorous mathematical equations stubbornly prove the extremely high probability of precisely this blood-curdling scenario. Scientists speculate that a miniature system of its own may exist around this tiny hole. It is quite possible that it has managed to capture and keep several small icy asteroids in orbit. These captive chunks of ancient ice may circle forever around an invisible tennis ball in the deep darkness. Such a picture radically changes our understanding of the architecture of the outer reaches of the solar system. We are presented with an entirely new world, hidden in impenetrable darkness and governed by incredibly brutal gravity. Studying such structures will undoubtedly help reveal the deepest secrets of the physical interaction of matter. Primordial black holes have never before been directly observed by humanity through any telescope. Their hypothetical existence has until now remained merely a beautiful but unprovable theoretical construct of quantum physicists. If Scholz and Anwin are proven right, this will undoubtedly become the greatest discovery in the long history of science. This discovery will completely rewrite all existing university textbooks on particle physics and cosmology. Humanity will suddenly gain unprecedented access to studying the most extreme object in the universe, literally up close. Theorists will finally be able to test their boldest ideas in a real-world natural laboratory. To test this theory, scientists had to develop a whole series of indirect indicators of the black hole's presence. Since the object itself is completely invisible, researchers plan to look for gravitational distortions of light from distant background stars. When a black hole passes in front of a star, its immense mass should act like a giant lens. The light from the distant star will briefly brighten and be distorted in a very specific way, forming a luminous halo. Detecting such a tiny optical distortion is incredibly difficult, but theoretically quite possible with enough persistence. But this potential discovery carries with it more than just the pure academic joy of scientific discovery. The clear realization that a black hole exists in the system causes profound existential anxiety among many thinkers. It is a completely alien object, living for millennia by the harsh and incomprehensible laws of quantum gravity. It does not obey the rules by which cozy and bright worlds like Earth were formed. It is a silent and deadly messenger from the very first, incredibly wild moments of the universe's existence. We have found ourselves neighbors with a relic monster that is significantly older than the stars themselves. Despite its frightening name, this object poses no immediate threat to the existence of our planet. Although its mass is enormous, its influence is strictly limited to the distant and lifeless outskirts of the solar system. The black hole is securely locked in its stable elliptical orbit, incredibly far beyond cold Pluto. It has no intention of suddenly changing course and flying straight toward our warm and life-giving sun. Earth is completely safe from its destructive and deadly grip for the foreseeable future. However, the very fact of its presence forces us to reassess the structure of our cosmic home. Astrophysicists quickly realize that finding such a specific object requires completely different, unconventional methods. Conventional optical sensors and infrared thermal detectors are utterly useless against such a perfect absorber of information. Science must not search for the tiny object itself, but for the massive destruction it leaves in its wake. The invisible monster must inevitably reveal its presence through aggressive interaction with the surrounding interstellar medium. All this absorbed icy cosmic dust should serve as a vivid marker of its relentless movement through the void. Traces of microscopic catastrophes may prove to be the only way to detect this ancient predator. Today, humanity's finest minds are joining forces to tackle this unprecedented challenge. Physicists, astronomers, and programmers are working together to develop unique machine vision algorithms. They are prepared to sift through petabytes of digital data for days on end, searching for the slightest deviations from the usual cosmic norm. Huge budgets are being allocated to build state-of-the-art observatories capable of detecting the faint whisper of matter being destroyed. Humanity is determined to lift the veil of centuries-old mystery from this hypothetical Dark Lord. The scientific community has begun urgent and large-scale preparations for an unprecedented high-tech hunt for the ancient darkness. Conventional astronomical instruments are completely incapable of discerning the microscopic event horizon of a tiny black hole. Researchers have begun actively developing fundamentally new and highly unconventional strategies to search for this anomaly. As the primordial black hole races through the icy Oort cloud at tremendous speed, it inevitably sucks in dust. Tiny particles of ancient ice and rock inevitably fall into this bottomless microscopic gravitational funnel. During this rapid descent, the matter heats up to millions of degrees and flares up in a death throe. These brief moments of matter's demise may be our only chance to detect the monster. These predicted accretion flares are expected to be very brief in duration, but incredibly bright in the gamma-ray range. To specialized sensors, they appear as random and extremely rapid sparks in the pitch-black cosmic darkness. The main problem was that older telescopes were physically incapable of surveying the entire night sky at once. They looked into space as if through a narrow keyhole, easily missing such flashes in neighboring sectors. To be sure of catching this monster red-handed, scientists needed a completely new class of ultra-wide-angle observatories. Old methods of studying the universe proved completely powerless in the face of such an ambitious task. The need to create a new, powerful telescope became obvious to the entire global astronomical community. Scientists required a reliable instrument capable of covering vast swaths of the sky in a single digital image. Designing such an incredible device took years of intense work by hundreds of the world's top engineers. It was necessary to create not just a large lens, but an ultra-sensitive digital eye of an entirely new generation. This eye had to capture what lasts only a fraction of a second against the backdrop of endless black emptiness. As a result, this ambitious technological project became one of the most ambitious scientific construction projects of our time. It was precisely to tackle such monumental challenges that the Vera Rubin Observatory was built high in the mountains of Chile. This gigantic scientific complex is equipped with the world's largest digital camera, boasting an unprecedented level of resolution. This unique telescope is capable of scanning the entire visible southern sky in detail in just a few clear nights. It functions like an incredibly massive movie camera, recording the slightest changes in radiation in space in real time. In recent years, this highly complex instrument has begun collecting its first sets of unique optical and radiation data. This represents the absolute and unmatched limit of human technological capabilities at this point in history. The Rubin Observatory makes no attempt whatsoever to locate the planet or the black hole itself through direct visual observation. The algorithms of ultra-powerful supercomputers search only for those millisecond-long flashes of matter being destroyed in the vortex. If the frightening hypothesis is correct, a sensitive camera should capture a faint glowing trail of radioactive sparks. This intermittent trail will unerringly reveal the precise mathematical trajectory of the invisible gravitational predator's movement through the void. Researchers will finally be able to see the shadow of this ancient monster solely thanks to the cosmic dust it devours. In essence, the black hole itself will trace its path with bright flashes of disintegrating comets, and asteroids. The telescope's massive digital camera has a resolution of over 3 billion pixels per frame. This image quality makes it easy to distinguish even the faintest and most fleeting events at vast distances. In a single night, the observatory generates tens of terabytes of invaluable and absolutely unique astronomical data. It would be impossible for humans to process this incredible mass of complex information even over thousands of years. That is why the latest neural networks and artificial intelligence algorithms quickly came to the aid of exhausted astronomers. Intelligent programs tirelessly search for characteristic bursts of radiation among billions of ordinary stellar points. In theoretical physics, there is another, even more exotic way to definitively confirm the existence of a black hole. The renowned scientist Stephen Hawking mathematically proved that black holes can evaporate very slowly but surely. They constantly emit a special type of quantum radiation, inexorably losing their colossal mass over time. A microscopic singularity the size of a grapefruit should consistently generate weak but perfectly detectable Hawking radiation. The spectrometers of the latest telescopes are now specifically tuned to search for this absolutely unique radiation signature in space. This faint quantum whisper could become direct proof of the great British physicist's theory. If ultra-sensitive instruments detect this radiation, the world of fundamental science will change forever and irrevocably. The practical detection of Hawking radiation will finally reconcile the incompatible fields of quantum mechanics and general relativity. This would brilliantly solve the greatest physical mystery, one that Albert Einstein himself struggled with unsuccessfully his entire life. However, the cost of this great discovery to humanity's collective psyche may prove too high. The realization of a black hole's actual presence would shatter the comforting illusion of planetary safety once and for all. Our familiar world will turn out to be a far more frightening and extreme place than we are accustomed to thinking. The search for this specific radiation requires a crystal-clear atmosphere, completely free of any terrestrial interference. This is precisely why modern observatories are always built high up in the mountains, where the air is as thin as possible. There, far from civilization and bright city lights, instruments can listen unimpeded to the deep silence of the universe. Every tiny recorded energy quantum is carefully analyzed to determine its true cosmic origin. Scientists methodically filter out all the background noise from our galaxy, trying to isolate that elusive faint signal. It is incredibly painstaking work, requiring truly angelic patience from the researchers. Data from the Rubin Observatory flows into processing centers on Earth as a continuous, massive digital stream. Thousands of powerful processors analyze every single pixel in the latest panoramic images of the starry sky around the clock. Scientists await the final results with incredible tension and a carefully concealed existential fear. Every new report generated could bring the very news that will overturn the entire human worldview. Our civilization has frozen on the threshold of the strangest and most alarming discovery in its entire long history. The entire academic community has literally held its breath in anticipation of precise and irrefutable evidence. This is definitely not just another routine study of distant, cold, and boring spiral galaxies. It is a direct, detailed probe of our immediate surroundings, the very cosmic homeland of all humanity. That which is invisible, hidden at the edge of the system, directly and constantly affects the gravitational balance of all the planets. The more researchers learn about the methodology of this complex search, the more anxious the anticipation itself becomes. People are building the most sophisticated machines on Earth solely to confirm their worst, most primal fears. Astronomers no longer await joyful discoveries. They await a harsh scientific verdict with resignation. If the Rubin Observatory finds that tiny, sparkling line of radiation in the darkness, all debate will cease instantly. Schultz and Unwin's hypothesis will become an irrefutable, ironclad fact, carved into scientific reference books around the world. The classical ninth planet will officially die, yielding its place to the solar system's primary black hole. People will have to fully and unconditionally come to terms with the fact of living in constant proximity to an absolute gravitational singularity. And this heavy knowledge will forever change the way ordinary people look with fear at the starry night sky. The familiar image of a safe universe will crumble, leaving us alone with the cold breath of cosmic eternity. Even if radiation bursts are not detected immediately, this does not mean the hypothesis has completely failed. The primordial black hole may well be passing through regions of space where there is virtually no fine dust. In that case, it simply has nothing to absorb, and it will continue to move absolutely silently and unnoticed. Scientists will have to muster immense patience and wait until the ancient monster crosses a denser cloud of debris. This could take many years of continuous and exhausting observations of the same region of emptiness. But the stakes are so high that no one in the scientific community is about to give up. Until final, verified observational results are obtained, the scientific community remains in a state of limbo, weighed down by the burden of uncertainty. Meanwhile, the gravitational anomaly continues its silent dance, stretching the orbits of the dwarf ice planets. The most sophisticated instruments are calibrated, search algorithms are running, and a technological trap for the invisible beast has been set. The cosmic detective has come within striking distance of its most thrilling and infinitely terrifying climax. The whole world watches with bated breath for the sparse news coming from the distant Chilean mountains, where history is being written. The denouement of this grand scientific mystery promises to be the defining astronomical event of this century. All possible scenarios are now entirely in the hands of powerful computers and impartial algorithms. Regardless of whether we find a massive icy planet or a black hole, the world will never be the same again. The outer reaches of the solar system have forever ceased to be a boring, utterly calm, and predictable place. They have become the main arena for the most extreme and mysterious forces in all of observable space. Humanity has a very long journey ahead to comprehend the grand scale of this new, terrifying reality. Soon, the universe will be physically compelled to reveal one of its most sinister and dark secrets. The implications of this potential quantum discovery extend far beyond the confines of a single small solar system. If astronomers discover a primordial black hole right on our doorstep, the fundamental logic of cosmology is completely overturned. This directly implies that such objects are by no means a rare and exotic anomaly in the cosmos. On the contrary, they may abundantly and unobtrusively inhabit absolutely every star system in a vast rotating galaxy. This phenomenon instantly ceases to be a local anomaly and becomes a fundamental universal law of the universe. Earth's solar system turns out to be merely a tiny and entirely typical part of a vast, terrifying mechanism. For many years, astrophysicists have desperately searched for elusive dark matter, which reliably holds rotating galactic disks together. The existing masses of visible stars are clearly insufficient to physically keep the galactic arms from falling apart. Scientists have devised invisible hypothetical particles to at least attempt to mathematically explain this obvious observational paradox. Underground laboratories have spent decades unsuccessfully trying to capture these ghostly particles in expensive traps. But the existence of a vast multitude of primordial black holes solves this enormous problem in an incredibly elegant and very eerie way. Trillions of such invisible heavy objects may collectively constitute that very mysterious missing mass. They are scattered throughout the entire volume of the galaxy, forming a gigantic and completely invisible gravitational framework. Space suddenly and irrevocably appears before researchers in a completely new, extremely hostile and frightening light. The space between distant stars no longer seems like a mere empty, boring, and relatively safe transit environment. It may literally be densely mined with a vast number of microscopic gravitational traps. Any hypothetical interstellar flight through such space would turn into a deadly game of high-speed Russian roulette. The ships of future generations run a high risk of being torn to atoms by a random collision with an invisible singularity. Conventional radars and laser rangefinders would be utterly useless for detecting such dark quantum obstacles in the path. The crew wouldn't even have time to realize the cause of their massive high-tech vessel's destruction. The universe begins to look far more cruel and unpredictable than even the boldest science fiction writers imagined. If this gravitational hypothesis is definitively confirmed, then humanity's conception of reality has been critically flawed. Telescopes have seen only glowing stardust and completely ignored the true, utterly dark masters of the galaxy. Primordial black holes could have quietly and unnoticeably controlled the evolution of star systems from the very moment of their creation. They methodically shaped orbits, destroyed failed young planets, and directed dangerous streams of comets. Throughout its history, science simply failed to notice the most important and influential actors on this vast cosmic stage. Scientists will be forced to completely rethink the statistics of potential fatal collisions in near space. An invisible mass the size of a tennis ball, possessing the gravity of a massive super-Earth, represents the perfect natural weapon of destruction. If such a microscopic object were to accidentally alter its elongated orbit and head toward the inner solar system, the consequences would be unpredictable. It would not simply crash catastrophically into the Earth's surface. It would pierce right through the planet, like an invisible bullet piercing a ripe apple. The powerful gravitational shock would trigger unprecedented global earthquakes and the complete structural destruction of the Earth's crust. The entire surface of the living planet will instantly turn into a seething ocean of molten magma. Billions of tons of rock will be hurled into the atmosphere, forever blocking the life-sustaining sunlight. Of course, the mathematical probability of such a direct and precise impact in the coming millennia is considered negligible. The orbit of the presumed black hole is currently located far beyond the orbit of the most distant icy Pluto. It obediently follows its stable path, showing no signs of aggressive behavior. However, on the scale of infinite cosmic time, any gravitational system is prone to slow destabilization. A minor gravitational interaction with neighboring stars passing by the Sun could easily disrupt this fragile orbital balance. The solar system constantly revolves around the center of the galaxy, encountering various cosmic disturbances along the way. And then, the invisible ancient monster is quite capable of fatally altering its current safe circular trajectory into a crossing one. The mechanism of the cosmic clock will malfunction, the consequences of which will be simply impossible to rectify. The very awareness of such an alien object's presence near the planet causes profound psychological distress in society. For centuries, people have gazed into space with great hope, searching there for beautiful new worlds for future colonization. Space agencies have searched for exoplanets potentially capable of supporting biological life and the construction of massive bases. Scientists have sent radio signals into the void, sincerely hoping to hear a friendly response from advanced neighbors. But now comes the realization that the alluring void harbors objects straight out of the most terrifying nightmares. Instead of wise brothers in reason, humanity may encounter only utterly ruthless, unconscious quantum phenomena. Researchers who have devoted their entire professional lives to studying the distant orbits of Neptune and Uranus are in for a real shock. Their cozy, predictable, and meticulously described worldview has crumbled under the onslaught of dry mathematics. No one in their right mind wants to voluntarily believe in living next to an absolute and inevitable destroyer of matter. The idea of a giant icy sphere seemed much more familiar and intuitively understandable to experts. Scientists are clinging desperately and humanly to the idea of an ordinary icy ninth planet until the very end. They continue to write articles proving the possibility of a classical cold world existing on the outskirts. However, relentless new data from radio telescopes continues to methodically and ruthlessly shatter these positive illusions. The picture of the universe is rapidly and irrevocably losing its familiar, reassuring, and safe contours. Nature has turned out to be far more inventive and harsh than humanity's bleakest theoretical expectations. The situation is greatly exacerbated by the undeniable fact that Earth has nothing to oppose this potential global threat. Human defensive technologies are laughably primitive in the face of colossal forces that warp space and time itself. Humans have barely learned to deflect tiny rocky asteroids, which is now considered the pinnacle of Earth's space engineering. If the primordial black hole truly exists, humans are merely powerless observers of its slow movement. All that remains is to passively track the trajectory of this cosmic heavyweight in the darkness. All of Earth's civilization is entirely dependent on the whims of the orbital celestial mechanics of this invisible ancient relic. Humanity is utterly defenseless in the face of physical processes that originated at the very dawn of the vast universe's creation. The realization of this total vulnerability could radically change the philosophy of civilization's development in the distant future. The scientific world has frozen in extremely anxious anticipation of sensational news from the modern Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile. Every terabyte of data received from there could contain the final verdict on the old astronomical paradigm. Debates among scientists at closed symposia and international conferences are becoming increasingly heated and deeply philosophical. Proponents of classical planets are engaged in heated debates with quantum cosmologists, defending their familiar scientific schools of thought. Theoretical physicists are desperately trying to find even the slightest saving flaws in Schultz and Unwin's rigorous calculations. They double-check every formula hundreds of times, hoping to find a simple calculation error. But so far, all independent mathematical checks have only confirmed the initial frightening correctness of these bold innovators. Mathematics is incredibly stubborn, and it continues to point toward the dark, icy abyss of the Kuiper Belt. Something massive, cold, and categorically refusing to make optical contact with instruments lurks there. Solving this mystery will be the primary intellectual challenge for science in the 21st century. And whatever is objectively located in this abyss bears absolutely no resemblance to an ordinary, albeit large, planet. What astronomers initially considered a simple and routine search for the ninth planet turned out to be a veritable Pandora's box. Scientists around the world gradually realized that they were dealing with a massive crisis of the very foundations of scientific knowledge. The problem is no longer limited to the strange gravitational anomalies of a handful of small, trans-Neptunian icy objects. It touches upon the deepest mechanisms governing the entire vast and incredibly complex universe. The global problem lies in science's fundamental inability to correctly interpret the surrounding cosmic reality. The human mind has come up against a solid, invisible wall of conceptual and physical misunderstanding of the cosmos. For centuries, astronomy has relied on optical instruments and the electromagnetic spectrum for its deep space research. Astronomers built ever larger mirrors and launched them into orbit to capture beautiful images. Powerful telescopes led researchers to naively believe that whatever shines is undoubtedly the most important thing in the cosmos. Scientists compiled detailed star catalogs, completely ignoring the total darkness between these bright points. But this mysterious gravitational anomaly brutally demonstrates the utter fallacy of such narrow visual egocentrism. It turned out that true crushing power and overwhelming mass can be absolutely black and inaccessible to direct observation. The surrounding macrocosm turned out to be millions of times more complex than just a beautiful set of glowing gas balls against a black background. Invisible structures wield far greater power over matter than even the brightest and hottest suns. If the discovered phenomenon truly turns out to be the first ever primary black hole, the consequences will be monumental. Physicists and astronomers will have to completely rewrite all the fundamental laws of the universe from scratch. The theory of the rapid formation of the early universe will suddenly receive its first direct experimental proof in human history. Scientists will have to humbly admit that the colossal Big Bang left behind microscopic scars right in space. These relic quantum wells have not dissolved into infinite time, but continue to fly ominously among ordinary luminous stars. They serve as living fossils, surviving from deep antiquity, when not even basic atoms existed. Studying these objects will give science the key to understanding the very first milliseconds of the vast universe's existence. For many years, researchers have sought answers infinitely far away in other spinning galaxies, arrogantly ignoring clues on their own doorstep. Space agencies have spent colossal resources studying quasars located billions of light years from Earth. And all this time, the most important mysteries of physics could have been quietly and calmly hiding in the backyard of the solar system. This inevitable discovery will definitively and irrevocably shatter humanity's scientific arrogance, inflated over centuries. It will force researchers to become much more modest in their assessments of their own understanding of the fundamental nature of things. Each new generation of super-powerful telescopes only exacerbates the unpleasant feeling of our own technological insignificance in the dark cosmos. Experts had high hopes that the Rubin Observatory would quickly and easily solve the old mystery of the ninth planet. The public expected to see beautiful, colorful photographs of the new icy world on the glossy covers of popular science magazines. People wanted to admire the rings, craters, and methane rivers on the surface of this distant giant. But instead, the most sophisticated digital instruments are forcing astrophysicists to peer into pitch-black darkness, desperately trying to see the utterly invisible. The instruments search day and night for faint traces of death radiation from an object that, right now, is endlessly devouring the very fabric of space. This is an entirely different level of research, requiring an unprecedented concentration of the computing power of modern supercomputers. The most paradoxical and terrifying thing is that this invisible gravitational singularity is alarmingly close on an astronomical scale. A distance of several tens of billions of kilometers seems absolutely enormous only to our limited human perception. On the scale of even a single modest galaxy, this distance is equal to the thickness of a single human hair. For the universe, this is literally the thinnest invisible boundary of its own, painfully familiar and well-studied planetary courtyard. An ancient cluster of destructive gravity has coexisted peacefully for millennia with fragile Earth-based robotic probes. The legendary Voyager spacecraft flew carefree through this distant, icy region of emptiness, completely unaware of the danger. They left the boundaries of the solar heliosphere, leaving the incredible quantum horror hidden there far behind them. Humanity was incredibly lucky that these fragile emissaries did not collide head-on with this invisible barrier. This forced and terrifying proximity inevitably raises very serious questions about the future survival of humanity as a spacefaring species. If deep space is indeed so densely populated with quantum predators, all planetary ambitions may be doomed to failure. Any attempt to build a vast interstellar empire will inevitably run up against the harsh and insurmountable laws of dark matter. Colonists' ships could vanish en masse after encountering microscopic pockets of infinite density within the void. Civilization simply won't be able to safely establish reliable trade and passenger routes to other bright stars. Humanity has not yet even learned to leave the confines of Earth's atmosphere in a completely safe and inexpensive manner. And the vast universe already clearly demonstrates quantum traps against which there is absolutely no known physical protection. Advanced theoretical physicists tentatively suggest that there may be a kind of protective aura around this mysterious black microhole. Various minute particles of dark matter may accumulate densely right around its event horizon, forming an invisible halo. This enormous invisible cloud of particles could serve as an additional source of strong gravitational influence on asteroids passing by. The interaction of ordinary ancient cosmic ice with this dense halo would inevitably generate even stranger radiation effects. Researchers are now frantically rewriting complex computer search algorithms to ensure these extremely exotic scenarios are accounted for. Programmers must train neural networks to recognize signals that no living person has ever seen in real life. The search for a hidden planet at the edge of the universe has long since and irrevocably shifted from ordinary observational astronomy to a hunt for quantum ghosts. This hunt demands the full mobilization of all of Earth's intellectual and technical resources. The general public has not yet fully grasped the sheer grandeur and frightening urgency of the events unfolding in the mountains. Ordinary people continue to take far greater pleasure in following simple colonial projects on dry Mars or the Moon. Popular science journalists enthusiastically write lengthy articles about hypothetical salty oceans beneath the thick ice of Jupiter's moon Europa. Everyone feels much more comfortable discussing the search for microbial life than a possible encounter with pure and utterly destructive energy. But a true existential drama is unfolding right now in the invisible radio spectrum on the cold outskirts of the Kuiper Belt. It is there that the most crucial, fateful question is being decided. Does science even understand the basic structure of the surrounding reality? And all the data collected by astronomers stubbornly points to the fact that academic science has been catastrophically and profoundly mistaken for many centuries. What if these terrifying primordial black holes are not simply random remnants of an ancient cosmic explosion? Some very radical thinkers in academic circles boldly suggest that these are natural constraints on the development of civilizations. Space may be deliberately and densely filled with such invisible minds to maintain a universal galactic quarantine. This chilling hypothesis suggests that nature is attempting to prevent the uncontrolled spatial spread of technologically advanced biological species. Any massive research vessel that accelerates to immense speeds is guaranteed to be destroyed by such an invisible, ultra-high-density fluctuation. Space may well be grandly designed to keep potentially dangerous civilizations in strict planetary confinement forever. Of course, such dark thoughts are merely gloomy philosophical speculations against the backdrop of a temporary lack of solid observational evidence. But the very fact that such theories inevitably arise in scientific circles speaks volumes about a profound crisis in the entire worldview. Astronomy has come face to face with a phenomenon that naturally evokes a primal, animal fear of the boundless and infinitely cold unknown. The gravitational anomaly indifferently continues its slow and utterly invisible dance around the calm yellow sun. It methodically distorts the orbits of comets, paying no attention to humanity's attempts to unravel its true nature. This process will continue for billions of years, outliving both the Earth itself and all its possible future inhabitants. And researchers continue to peer intently into this void, desperately afraid of what they might one day see there. It seems logical to people to consider the observable universe a wonderful place, specially created for endless development and knowledge. Civilization naively believes that, in time, Earth's science will inevitably and easily answer absolutely every question posed. Researchers have always thought that the great mysteries of the cosmos are simply mathematical equations that have not yet been solved. But the desperate search for the ninth planet has suddenly opened up a completely different, infinitely terrifying perspective on reality for astrophysicists. It is quite possible that there are grandiose quantum phenomena that the human brain is simply physically incapable of comprehending or imagining. If the new Rubin Observatory confirms this strange hypothesis, science will officially record the first primary black hole in history. This will undoubtedly be the greatest triumph of observational physics and, at the same time, a cruel, icy verdict on colonial hopes. Humanity will finally realize that its home star system is by no means a unique oasis of absolute safety. It is subject to the strongest hidden influence of ancient destructive forces, completely beyond human control and even understanding. The planet's survival here is by no means the result of biological evolution, but a simple and very temporary mathematical coincidence of orbits. This astonishing microscopic cluster of infinite gravity, by its very existence, shatters the very cozy concept of a cosmic home. Civilization lives on the planet, forced to share orbital space with the aggressive remnant of primordial, pre-stellar cosmic chaos. This super-dense darkness was here billions of years before the very first primitive single-celled organisms appeared in the ocean. It will remain here impassively, even after the aging sun expands and forever engulfs the burnt-out Earth. A black hole the size of a tennis ball is objectively the true, most ancient, and eternal master of this territory. And all of humanity is merely a fleeting, random, and incredibly fragile biological flash against its boundless black backdrop. The realization of this stubborn physical fact inevitably leads to a heavy, unbearably oppressive, deep existential anxiety. If deep space is so hostile at the most basic, fundamental levels of the structure of matter, the search for meaning is lost. The future of civilization, as an ambitious interstellar species, may turn out to be an absolutely insurmountable, harsh, and fatal evolutionary dead end. Spaceships will never be able to safely and freely leave the bounds of the sun's gravitational influence due to invisible quantum barriers. Beautiful dreams of conquering other stars may forever remain nothing more than the naive fantasies of science fiction writers from the last century. Humanity has historically and sincerely feared finding itself utterly alone in this gigantic, dark, and infinitely cold universe. Radio telescopes constantly send powerful signals into space in the hope of finding at least some form of advanced and friendly extraterrestrial intelligence. But the possible discovery of a primordial black hole clearly shows that not being alone is even worse and far more dangerous. Space is densely filled with incredible objects that possess no consciousness, but possess absolute and undeniable power to destroy matter. It is completely impossible to negotiate with them diplomatically. They cannot be carefully studied up close or safely bypassed using technology. The greatest astronomical mystery of our time is currently being intensely solved in the complete silence of the cold Chilean mountains. Supercomputers tirelessly continue to sift through terabytes of visual data, carefully separating random digital noise from true signals. Every microscopic flash of light in the Kuiper Belt could easily be the death cry of an engulfed comet. The scientific world now finds itself in the position of ancient cave dwellers who peered into the dark forest with primal fear. Only this modern forest is truly endless, and instead of ordinary wolves, invisible singularities lurk in its darkness. Regardless of what final result the computers ultimately produce, the world will never be the same again. Even if this invisible anomaly turns out to be an extraordinarily dark, cold, and simply massive ice planet. The very fact that it has hidden itself so incredibly long and successfully demonstrates the complete scientific blindness of our instruments. The instruments simply cannot see what is happening at the very closest boundaries of humanity's own stellar home. Reality turned out to be far more sophisticated, complex, and frighteningly darker than the most advanced and daring theoretical models of physicists. Perhaps this infinite universe is simply not physically designed for fragile civilizations to live and thrive within it. It was created under the monstrously extreme conditions of the Big Bang and remains extremely extreme to this very day. Life on Earth is merely a rare, statistically improbable and fleeting anomaly in the precise calculations of absolute darkness. And now, this eternal darkness waits very patiently and silently just beyond the cold orbits of the known gas giants. It is in no hurry whatsoever to swallow up the world, because the very concept of time has absolutely no physical significance for a black hole. Scientists may desperately resist this fact in their theories, but they are powerless to change it in any physical way. Researchers will certainly continue to gaze at the starry night sky because the thirst for knowledge is genetically embedded in the human mind. But this long gaze through telescopes will now always be overshadowed by the cold realization of the total vulnerability of biological life. Astronomers were searching for a new ninth planet simply to peacefully update school textbooks on basic celestial astronomy. But in the darkness, they found something capable of easily erasing the very existence of the authors of those textbooks in the foreseeable future. True, deep knowledge of the laws of the universe sometimes brings not great enlightenment, but only a cold sense of the inevitable cosmic finale. Humanity will have to learn to live with the oppressive thought of the constant presence of this invisible and deadly neighbor. Civilization must meekly accept the soul-chilling fact that it has absolutely no control over the surrounding and terrifying reality of the void. There is something profoundly and fundamentally wrong with humanity's understanding of the basic laws of gravity and of space-time itself. And the deeper science delves into this cosmic mystery, the more terrifying and hopeless each new revelation becomes. It is quite possible that civilization is destined to remain forever captive to this unpredictable, invisible, and infinitely terrifying quantum cosmic labyrinth.